So I had a viewer reach out to me asking me if there's any way to deal with the scratches that show up on the center console of these new bikes. With that glossy black finish, they mar up real easy. If we add a little light, you can clearly see all the swirls and marks on this shiny surface. And it really comes from, sitting on the bike and things rubbing on it as you're riding, and just the fact that it's such soft paint. So the first step is to make sure the area is clean. And you don't want any oils or any other chemicals present when you go to a compound. So you may be a fan of the Harley-Davidson spray and polish. I really do like this stuff. It works great. It foams up nicely and it really prevents scratching. But the problem is it leaves a little polish behind, a little protective coating. And we don't want that present when we're trying to remove scratches. What you really want to use is a paint prep. And there are many versions of these out there. I've become a fan of the McKee's N914 rinseless wash. So most rinseless washes or paint preps, pretty much the same thing. What I like about this product is you can use it for all kinds of different uses based on how much you dilute it. So it gives you a chart on the label, and it shows that for paint prep, you want 1 part of this solution to 8 parts of water. So I have this mixed up in a spray bottle. You do not have to be super accurate with the measurements. You can go crazy and measure it out if you want. I kind of eyeball it. So we basically have a 1:8 ratio here. And then you're definitely going to use a microfiber cloth here. Don't use a t-shirt or a bath towel. Those are horrible. They will just introduce more swirling and more scratching. So our goal is to spray the towel. This stuff is safe to spray on the part, so you can do that. And then you're just going to give it a wipe. You don't need to give it a lot of pressure. We're just trying to get rid of any marks on there, fingerprints, oils from your finger, or residue from a spray polish such as the Harley one. I do recommend with soft paint like this, go with the grain. So in this case, go vertically. Don't swirl around. We're just trying to wipe off and not introduce any additional scratches to try to get rid of. With the surface clean, we can take an inspection light or even an LED flashlight will work. And we can see we have a lot of swirling, which is expected on this type of surface. It's just so soft. And if you ever wash the bike and use a towel to dry it, or anytime you wipe it off, you're going to leave some swirling in this type of surface. But there are some heavier, deeper scratches that really show up in normal light. And those are the ones we're going to go after. So the next step is to pick a compound. You're looking for a liquid compound that doesn't leave anything behind. So I would avoid the all-in-one, one steps, where it's a compound and then a polish. I would rather just use compounding and correct and not leave anything behind. So there are many options out there. This one's from Chemical Guys, but it is a polish. So you'll see this a lot. It's a polish versus a compound. Really both are the same, except the compound is more aggressive than a polish. So sometimes I'll start with a polish just to see if that works. And then if it doesn't, I'll switch to a compound. So when you're using compounds and rubbing on the surface, you are removing some of the clear coat if you go after it hard enough. So the recommendation generally is go lighter to heavier and see what the results are. So you can start with a polish and see what happens, and then go to a compound. But from my experience with this surface, a compound is really what we're looking for. There's a lot of compounds to choose from, and really it just comes down to preference. So over time, you'll find one that you like and you think it works well, and just go with it. I don't really have any recommendation here, just looking for a compound, ideally that doesn't leave anything behind. So you can use things like the Turtle Wax Scratch and Swirl Remover. Meguiar's has this. A lot of companies have a scratch and swirl remover. These will work well. Some other options are the Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. I will tell you, this is my absolute favorite. This has worked on all kinds of surfaces. It's very forgiving. It's a thicker solution, so it can require a little bit more rubbing to get it off, but it's very forgiving and very effective. For a softer paint finish like this, I often go with the Sonex. And Sonex offers a couple levels of cut. They have a little diagram on the bottom that shows the cut level. This one is the Sonex Cut Max. And so it's really a compound. Sonex offers the perfect finish product, which you may be familiar with, but that's really more of a polish. So in this case, I'm going to use the Cut Max. It's a very liquidy solution, so I like it on this type of surface. With any of these compounds, these liquid compounds, you're going to want to shake them. You want to shake them really well, especially if that bottle's been sitting for a while, or if you bought it off a store shelf, who knows how long it's been sitting there. Then you need to choose what you're going to use to rub it on there. So you do not really want to use an applicator pad. This is for applying wax and an even flat surface for it to be wiped off. So an applicator pad is super soft, and it doesn't really help the compound to do its cutting work because it's just too soft. So you may think a microfiber towel. Well, a microfiber towel may work, but it's got the same problem as the applicator pad. It's really too soft, and it's not helping your compound do any work. I've really found what works well is a blue shop towel. I'm sure you're familiar with these. We see them at Costco and Sam's Club, but this is just essentially a paper towel that's a little more sturdier than a paper towel you'd use in your home. So these shop towels work really well. I will say though, never use these for general wiping on your bike. They are abrasive and they will actually introduce swirling. But with the combination of a compound liquid, this gives a little bit of abrasion to help that compound work. And I found it works nicely. We're going to apply just a very small amount to our paper towel, and then we're going to simply rub it in the area that we're trying to correct. You can kind of blot it first. I like to do this, and that gives you a start to level the liquid out a little bit so it's not so runny. And then you're going to take I take 2 fingers and put it in that area and then just start rubbing. And I'm using pretty light pressure, and I'm going in a circular motion. You don't want to rub real hard back and forth in one area. What you want to do is keep a circular motion going and light pressure. And you're just going to work your way across the entire surface. And once the compound starts to disappear, so you've rubbed it completely away, you either need to apply more compound or move on to a new area. And you can see on our towel, we're actually getting a little dirt on the towel, so it's definitely working. These towels I find work really well for this type of correction. So we're going to take our microfiber towel and a little bit of that paint prep, spray it on the towel. You can spray the part if you like. And we're going to just rub off the residue from the compound. Now you do want to rub carefully here. Rub lightly, rub in one direction. You don't want to introduce swirls that you just took out. So we can see that we removed most of those major smudges, and it's a lot glossier than it was before. But if we add an inspection light, we can see that there is still some swirling going on. It's really hard to get that out of the surface. You can see right there, there's some pretty good swirling still. But we definitely have an improvement here. So I think most professional detailers would tell you to stop here. We got rid of a lot of the swirls, a lot of the major smudges. It looks a lot better. But I know you Harley guys, you're going to want to go further. There's still too much swirling and smudging there for you, and you're going to want to do some more rubbing. I caution you, the more you rub, the more of that clear coat you're taking off. And eventually it'll start to haze. And once you get to that hazing point, you're really out of luck. And then you'll be buying a whole new center console. So I caution you, don't go too far. But if you wanted to, what would be another option here? So really our next option is to break out the heavy duty tool. So this is a random orbital sander or a random orbital polisher. So it's got a backing plate on it with Velcro. This is a Harbor Freight special. It's served me well over time. There are many versions of these. The big thing is to look for a random orbital option. So as it's spinning around, it's also spinning the whole mechanism. So it creates this random orbital pattern, which is like you applying it by hand. Many of you probably have a rotary sander. So that means it just spins right around in a circle. It doesn't give it that random pattern that you might get with your hand. The problem with spinning continuously in a circle is you can generate a lot of heat, which will quickly burn through that clear coat and create that hazing effect that is going to be non-correctable at that point. So you can polish with a rotary sander and a polishing pad, but you got to have some skill to do it and not sit in any spot for a very long time. Your next big decision is what kind of pad to go on here. There are all kinds of pads out there by all kinds of manufacturers. There is pads that are made with microfiber materials. It's a thin piece of microfiber glued onto a pad. There are wool pads. So these are really thick and fluffy, but they actually cut more than a regular pad. And then you have your traditional foam pads. And these come in different shapes with different designs on them. This is, I think, a chemical guise, so it has the hexagon pattern. It's supposed to introduce air as you're polishing to prevent heat, which is the real enemy here. They come in different colors. So the colors have to do with how aggressive they are. Orange is generally what you're looking for, especially on surfaces on a motorcycle that are soft. The orange is kind of in the middle. But you'll also see like black, which is really for polishing, so that's very light. And then you'll see red, which gets very coarse. But there are different colors by different manufacturers. You really have to investigate what they're offering, and you're looking to go in the middle, is my recommendation. So you're going to apply your pad to the Velcro backing plate, try to get in the center, and then you're going to take your compound of choice, we'll stick with the Cut Max, and you're going to put some dots around the pad. There's a lot of opinions here of how to prime a pad. Some people say don't prime a pad at all, just put a few dots on and go. I usually put a few more than a few dots to try to get a few around. And then I like to take my finger and just kind of rub it in. But you can do what you think is best. What you don't want to do is have a completely saturated pad. You get too much compound on here, it's going to actually work against you. So you don't need a lot, but this pad's completely dry. So I'm going to have a few more dots, smush it around a little bit, but I don't want to saturate the pad. So here's what my pad looks like. What we're going to do is we're just going to dab the area. And you can see the pad is a lot bigger than the surface we're trying to go after here. So we're going to have to be very careful as we go around and try not to rub surfaces that we don't want to. It's not ideal. Ideally, you would have a smaller pad and a smaller polisher, and they exist. You can get really tiny ones. So if you get into this, you'll eventually invest in one. But for this, we're going to use what's readily available. So the next decision is to make your speed selection. I'm going to start on a very slow speed. This one adjusts, and I would not buy one that doesn't adjust. So we're going to start at speed 2, and then if we get going, we may go up to speed 3 or 4. I wouldn't really go much higher than that, especially with this surface and the challenges with the shape. So we're going to turn the polisher on, and we're just going to work the areas. And I'm just using the tip of the pad. The other part of the pad is just hanging off. We'll keep moving. And you're essentially just trying to touch the surface that you want to polish. I'm using no pressure here at all. I'm just guiding it. And we'll keep it moving. And then we'll go slow. Okay, so I just left it on speed 2. You could ramp it up a little higher, but the surface is just so uneven, it's probably going to catch and hop, and it can actually do more damage than good. So you're just trying to touch the surfaces as you go. Don't let the pad start jamming or skipping, just lift off if that starts to occur. So we've run it around the part. Let's clean it off with a little bit of the paint prep and see what we've got. So from a distance, we can see it's even shinier, more gloss and less marks visible. If we apply our inspection light, we can see there's still some compound hanging out that I need to wipe off, but a lot of the swirling is gone. So I know it's hard to see that on camera, but it looks a lot better. So it's looking pretty good, and I'm gonna stop here. I encourage you, don't keep going. Don't chase every scratch. You're asking for trouble. But we have a big improvement here, and I'm pretty happy with the results. So now that you have your part all shiny again and mostly scratch-free, you're gonna wanna protect it. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I coated this bike. I used a graphene coating by Adams to coat the entire bike. So now that we ran the random orbital polisher over it, we've likely removed most of this coating. Not all of it, because I wasn't very aggressive, but I bet a lot of this coating is now gone. So with it clean, we could recoat it. So if you have some of your coating left over, just reapply the coating. I will say these coatings don't last very long. So if you've had this sitting in your cabinet for months, it may not be very effective. And sometimes they harden and they won't really apply at all and they won't flash correctly. So these aren't designed to sit around. So this may or may not be a good option. Another option is to look for a spray detailer. This one's from 303. It's a graphene detailer. There are many different versions of it, either ceramic or graphene. It's really your choice. There are a lot of these out there. But these are designed to be a detailer. So they're not designed to protect for very long. They'll give you a quick shine, last for maybe a month, some claim up to 3 months, but it's not going to protect like a true coating. Another option is to find a spray sealant. So these will last longer. With a prepped, clean surface, these will last 6 months, some say a year. A lot of them you can keep applying. So you every 6 months reapply it and it'll go indefinitely. So this one's a ceramic shine from Torque Detail, but there are a lot of them out there. The Adams company actually makes a graphene spray detailer that's like the coating, and I would probably recommend that for my bike since that's the coating I have on here, but I just don't have that handy. But there are a lot of these. So this is a spray-on sealant, not a spray-on detailer. That's really the difference. This will give you longer protection. And I would recommend this solution over all of them, unless you have some leftover coating that's still good. So a couple of quick pointers. Always have fresh microfibers around. Don't mix the chemicals. So if you use a microfiber for a paint prep and then you switch to wiping off your paint sealant, get a different towel. Don't mix them. One other thing, if you ever drop your towel or your applicator or your pad on the ground, don't use it. It needs to be thoroughly washed before you use it. I know it's very tempting. Oh, I dropped the towel on the garage floor, just pick it up, shake it off and go. You're not going to get all those little rocks out of your towel, and you're just going to introduce swirls after all that work. Always have the right towel, clean and fresh, ready to go, or the right pad for the application that you're going for. Now, what about scratches on other surfaces of the bike? This process will work really for anything. You never want to use these processes, however, on the infotainment screen. Don't use a compound on it. I would even avoid the plastic compounds. If you got a scratch in your infotainment system, you might be tempted to try that plastic compound and give it a rub. I'd be very careful. That is a touch surface, and it is going to be a bear to get a scratch out of it. So I know many are looking for screen protectors for that. I've not seen one. I will say I never touch the screen. I avoid touching it as much as possible. I'm always using my hand controls. But these screens are eventually going to get scratched out in the wild on a motorcycle. It's going to be very difficult to get scratches out of that screen. So don't use any of the techniques I've shown you here on that screen, but it will work on any of the painted surfaces, any of them. It will also work on the plastic. So your wind deflectors or this deflector here, you can use this technique on plastics. It does work well. You can even use this technique on engine surfaces. So your engine cover, your primary cover, your tranny cover, it will work on that. But I don't recommend using any sealants or coatings on your engine. You need a coating that will handle the heat. So be very careful if you're intending to do that the product you're using will work in a high heat application. I will put links to some of my favorite detailing products in the description of this video. There will be my Amazon affiliate links. Again, if you purchase through those, it costs you nothing, but I get a small commission for referring that product to you. So I appreciate your support. I hope you found this information useful, and if you did, you'll go share it with someone else. But until next time, in the friction zone.